What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's another edition of Breaking Bet here on this January 23rd, Wednesday evening. We finally made it. We're talking NFC Championship Sunday, AFC Championship Sunday. The light at the tunnel, it's almost here. And I need a little bit of help to talk me through it. So I got my guy, Eric Pauly, here, as usual. What's going on, E?
What's going on, brother? Glad to be here. Let's go commies.
No, let's not go commies. Let's not go commies. You know what? We were talking off air, okay? And obviously, I had the Lions preseason to beat the Chiefs. And I'm like, okay, this is the year for the Lions. Like, it doesn't get any better than this year, despite the fact that they had all the injuries. You know, that was a game where we talked about last week. And I'm like, all right, like, you know, Washington being a 9-point underdog, it's way too big. Like, we thought there was going to be scoring. We thought Jaden Daniels, even as a rookie, this was a spot where he can have success against the Lions defense. And obviously he had more than success. But I feel like the Lions kind of just obviously let me down. But there were so many instances, it's head scratching. What were they doing? If Ben Johnson, and this is what happens when people are so intelligent. When there's people that are so smart, sometimes they're too smart for their own damn good. They think that's why Kyle Shanahan didn't win the Super Bowl when he was the OC of the Falcons, because they outsmart themselves and they're arrogant and they want to rub it in your face. 3rd and 1 in the red zone after Jahmyr Gibbs was handling them that entire drive. And not only does he pass, but he goes empty. Jared Goff fumbles, they don't get points. Chances are, if you line up under center 3rd and 1 twice, you're gonna get that first down and probably end up scoring. And they go up 14-3. The whole game looks a lot different. The trajectory completely changes. But you know, I can't harp on it. It's too painful.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I had the over. That was the least sweat ever. Ended up playing the money line and the spread. I had a great time. it was awesome. We'll dive in more into obviously I'll talk about why I think the impact of what we saw from Washington last game is beneficial to this game. So Johnny, let's start talking this matchup, because obviously I have a ton of thoughts. I'm sure you do as well. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of what Washington did last week, don't get me wrong, against an absolutely battered defense for the Detroit Lions, but that's all in the game, and they did some things differently schematically also, Johnny. So we can talk through that in this preview.
And that's where we're going to start. NFC Championship game, the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles, the 3-match. If anybody thought that the Washington Commanders legitimately were going to be here preseason, legitimately, not like, they might be able to do it. If you're like, no, Washington's going to be here, go buy a lottery ticket, because you know what? A lot of things are going to break your way. Eric, it was a 5.5 Royal Mint spot earlier this week. Now the line's between 6 and 6.5, depending on which book you're looking at. Wouldn't shock me to see a little bit of buyback coming back on Washington later as this week progresses. A lot of people are going to probably share the sentiment that Jaden Daniels in a divisional matchup, even in this magnitude, should not be getting north of a touchdown. But for now, we're at 6.5. Do you share the sentiment that Washington should not be getting this many points? Or do you think Philly, in a year where they're going to look to avenge that Super Bowl loss a few years ago with maybe the best team they've ever had, are going to blow past them and make it to the Super Bowl?
I don't see a world where they blow past them. I think the blow past them stems from the shout out to Colby. That's my dog.
Colby, that's our guy, man. Love me some Colby Marchio.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, rookie quarterbacks don't historically do well on the road in big games in the playoffs. And in the NFC Championship game particularly, I think they're 0-5 straight up and against the spread when there's been a rookie quarterback playing in an NFC Championship game. No rookie quarterback is Jaden Daniels. He is so advanced that at this point, taking Washington at 6.5, it's obviously, still not at that key number of 7, which I do not think it'll get to, Johnny. I agree with you that if anything, it's gonna come back. Mm-hmm. But you're asking a guy who has consistently outperformed every expectation for not just a quarterback, but for a rookie quarterback in terms of pocket poise, decision making, not turning over the football, converting these crazy 4th downs, literally elevating a team of mediocre to bad skill players to the NFC Championship game. So I don't think that based on what you've seen from Jaden Daniels, you can feel comfortable laying 6.5 points against the team that he is under center against. So no, I don't care about the magnitude of the game. I don't care that it's in the link. It's supposed to be good weather compared to what we've had in the Northeast, as you know, right now, Johnny. It's supposed to be like 40-ish, not
single digits every day, dude.
Sunday it's supposed to be in the 30s, dog. So we got like a much more normal sunny day coming up. So
30s. I'm coming out here with a guinea tea. I'm coming out here with some baby oil. I'm coming out here, barbecuing, some burgers, some dogs. I mean, we're having a party out here. It's in the 30s. Exactly. Come on, bro.
Exactly. So, yeah, the way I see it, and we can again talk more like specifics, like there's nothing anybody has seen from Jaden Daniels to think that getting him getting 6.5 points currently seems like as nice as it gets. And the reason why you like Philly is if you're factoring him to finally hit this wall, but there's been no signs of this wall coming anytime soon.
Yeah, listen, I'm in agreement. And we talk like the two things that I have to say every single show. We've done a podcast almost every single week this year. I think maybe 1 or 2 weeks, a couple weeks scheduling conflicts. So probably out of whatever it's been, 20 weeks at this point, we've probably done a podcast together 17 weeks. Every single time I talk about the same thing. Arizona Cardinals being the highest variance team in the NFL and how much I love Jaden Daniels, how much you love Jaden Daniels. That's all we talk about. That is the thing that we say every single show. And I believe it. Like JD5, this is nothing new for us. I was talking about him rookie of the year, MVP after 4 weeks. Had a big ticket on him. And I think the guy's going to be a superstar in the NFL for years to come. MVP, multiple time MVP, probably going to win a Super Bowl. Like JD5 is him. And I hate saying that about rookie quarterbacks because it's just the sample size is too small. But this kid is different. He's a killer. This kid is cool, calm, collected with the big moment. You see him in tight games on the sideline, just like nothing's happening. You can't coach that. That is an intangible. He has it. Jaden Daniels has something almost no other quarterbacks I've ever seen have, especially at that young age. And listen, this isn't for a lack of experience why I think Washington is going to have a tough matchup here. But I'll say this. I can't in good conscience not take the Commanders on this hot streak that they have. Dan Quinn, who I've had to watch squander a Super Bowl for the Falcons, he's pushing all the right buttons. Cliff Kingsbury, that guy knows how to run an offense. Even though he wasn't a great head coach, he knows how to run an offense. Some people are better off as number twos. I think Cliff Kingsbury probably falls into that bucket. Even though their skill players really aren't that good. I mean, I'm not impressed with any of their guys outside of Terry McLaurin. Like Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's okay at best. Eckler, I think he was hurt last year, but he's getting older. Like they're relying on 75-year-old Zach Ertz, Diami Brown, Alameda Zaccheaus. I remember when he played for the Falcons. Like all these guys, that's who they're relying on. So it's like Terry McLaurin's a dog, absolutely. But after that, it's really thin. Then you're relying on Jaden Daniels to make plays. You're relying on Cliff Kingsbury to draw up a lot of open looks for different receivers. I think it's going to end up happening. And I think their defense, while it's not good, you saw what happened with the Lions. Even though the Lions kind of shot themselves in the foot, they're getting timely stops, timely turnovers. The 6.5 points.
Let me add on that, Johnny, because the defense, though, the reason, and this is what I want to say, what I was going to say prior, Washington played man defense, one of the highest rates in the NFL. I think it was 7th or 8th. And last week, they didn't. They mixed in a lot more zone coverages, and we talked about how Goff is a killer against man coverage, and that could be the issue. And it's not often that teams break tendencies like that, especially in a big game. Like teams like Aaron Glenn on the Lions side, he's never going to break his tendency of being a man-to-man guy. Like other coaches like Gus Bradley, the Colts DC, he was never in his history of coaching defense ever going to break his zone coverage tendencies. You know what I mean? But we did last week, and that threw off Goff a little bit. And I think that's important to note, Johnny, that yes, there were some turnovers that never hurt, but you see Jared Goff overthrowing a guy to a deep safety that returned for a pick six. He hit his ass with his own.
So
Martin pick six.
Yeah, well, so in that case, and I got to say, I think Tom Brady did a great job commentating that game last weekend. But he's like, I don't understand why Jared Goff's trying to fit that in the bucket, because you don't only have the safety back, but you got the linebacker underneath. So Goff's got to fit that into that bucket. He can't throw a straight bullet because he's got the linebacker underneath and he got the safety coming over the top. So like that's a touch finesse throw. But he's like, why is he trying to make that throw and get greedy? He had Sam Laporta underneath for a 5 yards, stay ahead of schedule, and you make a reasonable. I don't remember if that was a first or a second. I think it was a second down. So maybe it would have been what 3rd and 8, something like that.
He had a lot of space too. So I mean, that could have even converted to like a first. But yeah.
I mean, listen, I think, in all honesty, I think some of the turnovers Washington has, those are things that can be controlled. The 3rd and 1, dropping back to pass out of an empty set instead of getting up under center, that fumble doesn't happen if they do that. Jalen Hurts, obviously, the tush push, we know they're going to do that. Jamison Williams, end around pass, throwing the ball. I mean, come on. Those things aren't going to happen. But like Mike Sanderson, right before the half, Jared Goff could have threw a better ball, but Sanderson made a great play. Undercut Jamison Williams.
Making a big time play.
Yeah, that was a big play. I mean, he undercut. That was beautiful. I was like, oh my God, I kind of gotta tip my cap to him.
Yeah.
So listen, Washington, it's not just the roster. They got a lot of juice right now. They got a lot of hype. This is what happens when you have a team that has to basically play playoff football for like a month before the regular season ends. And they have a lot of juice right now, a lot of helium. And in a divisional matchup, like, they're playing with house money. If they lose, okay, they're expected to lose. They already won 2 games. They have a rookie quarterback taking them to an NFC championship game with the roster that is inferior by a mile to Philadelphia. So they're playing with house money. I don't think they're going to come in tense. I think they're going to come in loose. So I like laying the 6, taking the 6.5 with Washington. There's a 6 on DraftKings. And also, by the way, like I said, I think there's going to end up being some buyback on Washington late in the week. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But goddamn, dude, if this thing closes at a Royal Mint spot, I'm afraid for some of my Eagles futures. A Royal Mint spot in the NFC Championship game with Jaden Daniels as the recipient of the Royal Mint, that is terrifying. That's some shit you tell your kids about, with the flashlight under you. That's terrible. But, listen, I think Washington getting the points here makes sense. I have a lot on Philly that I've put in throughout the last few weeks, like some of the futures and stuff, like a Saquon Barkley Super Bowl MVP ticket. I think Philly's going to win this game. I think it's their turn. They've suffered enough. I think their team is too good. They're at home here. And, listen, I'm a little concerned with the Jalen Hurts mobility thing. But the truth is, I feel like Kellen Moore, again, we're talking about an offensive coordinator who had a great season, who's putting so much together and making one of the most exciting offenses in the league. He's doing a lot of dumb stuff. If you looked at the early part of the game last week against the Rams, for some reason, he comes out. He's the first 10 plays, 8 of them are passes. He's not giving the ball to Saquon Barkley. And I'm scratching my head. And on the 6th carry of Saquon, he broke the 60-plus yard touchdown. So, listen, I think if they run the ball with Saquon Moore, make sure you get him his 25-plus touches. I think they'll be fine. I don't think Washington's secondary is going to be able to handle the Eagles receivers, Arthur Shelby Brown, Devontae Smith. God, he's back. He had a good week last week. The big thing for the Eagles, and luckily they have a great offensive line, why the Lions were struggling a little bit on offense, not a lot, but a little bit, was Goff was getting some pressure to him. Eagles got to keep Jalen Hurts upright. I think Philly ultimately is going to win this game, Eric, but I think it's going to be close. I can end up seeing this come down to a late drive where Philly's got to go down and kick the game-winning field goal. Maybe the Eagles are up. Maybe the Eagles are up 6 points and they got to stop Jaden Daniels, which is a nightmare getting the ball last. But either way, I do think Philly's going to win this game. But I think Washington's going to cover. It's going to be tight. And in terms of the first teaser leg, even though I think the Eagles are going to win, I can't ignore getting 12 to 12.5 points with Washington in a teaser leg.
So I had the Eagles all season long. Literally my preseason prediction. Had tickets. Well documented. You watched the second of the show, you probably heard me mention that at some point.
Yep.
We're not talking crazy money on those tickets, Johnny, but listen, there have been times I've come on the show, anyone who's followed me for the last X amount of years knows that I will bet against the Washington Commanders when I think they are not going to win the football game, despite being a fan. Johnny, I cashed out of every single Eagles ticket I had and put it all on Washington.
What?
Everything. I Washington money line, and I thought I was getting ahead of the market when it first dropped. It was +6. I was like, I think that's too much. Looked good for the first like 24-ish hours where we're sitting like 4.5, 5.5. And then, as we are now, the midweek money came in on the Eagles, and it's sitting, with the 6.5 now. Juice to the Washington, the Washington -6.5. But with that being said, the Philadelphia Eagles are the better football team, undoubtedly. We have the better quarterback. So we, as in Washington, as a fan, I'm saying we have the better quarterback. The Eagles are better on defense. They're better all across the board. Sam Cosmi, the Commanders' best offensive lineman, is out. That is massive when you play against Jalen Carter. That is absurd. On the flip side, Nakobe Dean is out, and he is their best run defender. And if Washington can establish the run, it opens up everything. I know people say that about football in general, but it's really true with the way that Cliff Kingsbury runs his offense. If you can get Brian Robinson getting 4 or 5 yards of carry, then all the JD5 stuff comes out, all the play action stuff comes out, and that is when Washington is an absolute unit that, again, they played a relatively easier strength of schedule. We're talking about a team in the top 6 in EPA per play, in the top 6 in success rate, in the top 6 in pass EPA, rush EPA. Like, this is an offense that's a wagon. Eagles defense obviously good, but Washington has beaten this team, though it was no Goddard for Philly. But Washington at that point, like, their receiver 2 was Olamide Zaccheaus, and Diami Brown has never even established himself.
Yeah.
So I think Goddard being back is helpful for the Eagles. I've mentioned those other injuries here, but listen, you can call it a fandom and whatnot, but if I really felt like the Eagles if we were gonna lose, right? Like, I would have kept some equity in them because I'm a gambler more than a fan at times. I'd rather collect a little bit of cash. That being said, there is no doubt in my mind that the Washington Commanders are live in this football game. You're giving me +225, +230. Yeah, I will ride and die at this point.
You don't have a single ticket.
Cash them all out.
But why though? I mean, listen, you could if you cashed a couple out and you kept one, I don't agree with that. Because,
every single one.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing though. Now you're being a gambler. Instead of being
I'm okay with the result. I calculated if I'm going to be upset about losing this money or not. The answer is if the Commies go to the Super Bowl and I hit on these. And again, it's not even okay, at this point, I'm just thinking fan. I can get how it come off as biased. I think the Washington Commanders can win this football game. They've beaten them before. They are absolutely on fire. Jalen Hurts stinks. Let's go JD5.
They can win this game, no doubt. But will they win this game? You seem to think so. I mean, because I was going to say, if you kept your ticket, if you kept any of even one of your tickets, you could have done what I used to do with the Falcons: hedge financially versus emotionally. Brother, you're coming out a winner one way or another.
I've already did those internal emotional calculations. I'm all in.
I'm all in. All right. I mean, listen, I would be so mad if Washington won to kill another ticket of mine. And I told you this. Jaden Daniels, I love him, but he hasn't suffered enough. He hasn't suffered to win the Super Bowl. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts should have won a Super Bowl the first time around. Josh Allen has suffered. Lamar has suffered. Joe Burrow has suffered. Jaden Daniels has not suffered enough yet to get to this point. That doesn't mean he won't do it, but football karma-wise.
My last just matchup, an actual analysis to back why the Commanders, so I get some of that fan out of there. Like I said about the playing more man coverage against Detroit, I anticipate less man coverage, more zone coverage against Detroit. I anticipate them bringing that back against the Eagles. Like A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, animals, torch man coverage because they're animals. We know what A.J. Brown did to Marshawn Lattimore in that first matchup, but Marshawn Lattimore just played his best game as a Washington Commander, undoubtedly, which is, wasn't saying much because he was pretty shitty the first couple of games he played, but he was that lockdown corner. If you watch football all year long at a detailed level, you know that Mikey Sanders still in those 2 interceptions he had in the NFC championship, in the NFC, divisional game, he has been balling all year long, and now he's CB2. Like, these issues that Washington has had in the past couple of years as the worst pass defense because they didn't have anybody, and wide receivers 2, 3, 1s absolutely murdered them. I don't think that's the case. A.J. Brown still with his injuries, And it all comes back to me to the quarterback, because Jalen Hurts, if its game becomes a drop back passing game, which they're going to try to avoid by any stretch of the imagination, because Saquon has torched this team, and his prop is 125.5 yards. Like, everybody's, I just checked.
Well, there was 130. Well, there's 130. There was a 130 out there. I mean,
I have to get that down.
There was a big show of it on Twitter. A couple of accounts.
Number.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you, what do they do about Saquon Barkley? You saw what Jahmyr Gibbs did to them, and yeah, like listen, they're obviously both explosive, unbelievable, world-class athletes, but they're a little bit different. Saquon Barkley's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Jahmyr Gibbs is a little bit more elusive and agile than Barkley. And I mean, we're nitpicking here, of course, but I mean, you saw what Jahmyr Gibbs was able to do on them. Like, do you think? How do you think that the Commanders would end up stopping Saquon Barkley or even containing him, especially when you commit and you load the box like teams have tried to do all season, and then you have these elite athletes and AJ and Devontae on the outside?
You still had a $150 against us, and we still beat their ass a couple weeks ago. So, like, you're not.
Jalen Hurts had 5 pass attempts. He got hurt early. That changed. By the way, like, that changed the whole game. When Jalen Hurts left with that injury, it changed the entire game.
I still am okay. I entirely true. I'm not convinced at this point, injury or not, that either way that Jalen Hurts is good enough to warrant such a spread anyway. So maybe I'm over hating Jalen Hurts, and it's not like Washington is going to all of a sudden find a way to make Saquon Barkley only run for 55 yards in this game. It ain't happening. He's going for $100 at least, right? If we are able to if Saquon's going to run all over us and we're at least able to play that same kind of pass defense that we were able to play last week, like, yes, we still got shredded, but we made those timely plays and we were able to confuse, Jared Goff against a worse quarterback who also takes a ton of sacks too, who is also, susceptible to those terrible sacks, getting out of field goal range. Elliott's been horrible, as we know. Fumbles are obviously possible in those situations. I could see it like a situation where if Jalen Hurts has to play catch up, if Washington gets out early, so they get the ball first and they score, and he has to throw the football, I think that is going to really, really hinder the Philadelphia Eagles' ability to succeed. If they get out early, it's a 7-3 game in the second quarter, then Saquon just gets 5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, and the clock ticks. The Eagles won't play football. Is that possible? Absolutely, and that would be, a death sentence for Washington. But again, the spread we were in agreement of, but in terms of Commies winning outright, it's more of a situation where, yes, they are the better team, but I'm betting on the better quarterback.
That's your team. And you know what? I'm disappointed in you because you're coming on here tonight on this. Oh, wait, today's Thursday. Sorry. I thought it was Wednesday. What did I say? Wednesday. On this Thursday, January 23rd, you ripped up every single Eagles ticket you have via the cash out button because you're like, okay, God damn it, I'm in. I'm going Washington Commanders, balls to the wall. That's my team. That's been my team since I've been a little kid, right? But what do I see on you? I don't see a Commander's hat. I don't see a shirt. I don't see it. Oh, gee. Sorry. I
turn my camera around.
I left my binoculars in the other room. Do you want me to go get them? I left my binoculars in there, so I can't see exactly what you're pointing to.
I have a Terry
no gear. You have no gear on. Okay, so like I would have expected something like maybe a Santana Moss Redskins jersey, for Christ's sake. Something. Sean Taylor, Ghost of Sean Taylor, come bring it home for me. Nothing. Eric, you are in a plain sweatshirt with no hat, and you're just gloating about the Commies win, and we're gonna win. Dude, you got to bring me some gear, brother. You can't do that. Like if I was an Eagles fan, like diehard Eagles fan, I'd be head to toe dripping in Birds gear, bro.
Sunday morning, hungover as shit, took a walk around Central Park, rocking my Commies hat. It was an amazing start to my day after that amazing Saturday night. I have jerseys hanging on my wall. I got gear. And listen, I generally, if anyone's listened to the show all year, like, please feel free to let me know if I come off often as very biased on the Commanders in the past.
It's not about being biased. You're not. No, I don't think you're biased. I'm just saying, like, you're not repping your team via clothes or hats.
I promise you that JD5 jersey will be on my body on Sunday at 3:00.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. Real quick, anything about this total? staying away? You on 47 and a
I
half?
think 40. I ran my numbers for whatever that's worth, and it was 47 flat. So no
Yeah.
interest in the total. I think it could be like a 24-23. Either I think Comby's 24-23. That's my prediction.
I could see something like that. I have this right around like a 24-20, 24-21 kind of game. I think this total is a tick high, especially if the Eagles do what they like to do, run the ball a ton with Saquon Barkley. Washington, they can move the ball quickly, but I think this is a team that's going to try and do some methodical drives as well to keep that offense on the sideline.
For sure.
We move on here. The Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs. Round 2. Buffalo, another team that's looking for a little payback. This is just off a pick'em here. Chiefs minus 1.5 points with a total of 48.5. I went first on the last one. I'll let you go here.
You know what I'm going to say, and if you don't know, give me Patrick Mahomes. It's that simple. I bet it at open minus 115. Hammered it. It's minus 120-ish now. So not like it's like a massive line value, though I wouldn't expect to get massive line value in a playoff game, barring like a crazy, injury out of nowhere. But that's not the case here. I bet the Chiefs. I'll talk about my squares play that I took for this weekend because it's one of those like instinctual plays. It's a bad bet. We're talking about a 10-point teaser here, but I'll hold the suspense. I took the Commies plus 16. Took the Chiefs through the 0, which is obviously not smart, but getting 8.5 with Patrick Mahomes. I know he lost to them by 9 earlier this year. He is not losing to them at all, and he's definitely not losing by more than 1 possession in this one. And the final
teaser, but what are you laying for that?
Minus 120 on DraftKings.
10 or 6-point teaser.
10-point teaser, and my final leg is over 38.5 in this game. If you could fact check me, like I promise you click 3
you
things.
Said 10 points. 10 points.
10.
Is minus 120? 120. It's 6-point teasers minus 1. On DraftKings, 6-point teasers minus 120. That's been around since Moses wore short pants.
Teaser used to be plus 100.
On DraftKings?
No, in like olden gambling times until the books on the edge and now made it minus 120 after it being.
How old are you? Are you even in your 3rd decade of life?
Nah, but I know more than somebody who is about this gambling shit. So somebody's got to read up.
10-point teaser. There's 7-point teaser available. That's it on DraftKings.
Bro, I'll pull up the bet slip.
Look, where's the 10-point teaser?
Did you pick 3 things?
Oh, you said 3 things.
Yes, okay. I was introducing the 3rd leg of that 10-point.
I apologize. I interrupted.
38.5 over in this game. So Commies plus 16.5, Chiefs through the 0 to 8.5, and over 38.5. And over 38.5 in this football game.
I do apologize for interrupting. That's probably why. All right. We're both on the same side here. I like Kansas City. Buffalo, great season. Listen, I think in all fairness, they weren't great against Baltimore. I think Buffalo obviously did enough to win, but there was some things I feel like they kind of stymied out in the second half. The Ravens defense has been playing a lot better, sure, but they kind of took the ball out of Josh Allen's hands a little bit via the pass. They got a little bit conservative at times. You can't rely on Mahomes to probably do some of the turnovers that Lamar had, where he sailed that first interception or that only interception. The fumble, I get was him trying to make a play. The defense played inspired, absolutely. But Lamar Jackson isn't Patrick Mahomes. Everybody that's just been on his bandwagon harder than usual, there's nobody that's Patrick Mahomes. He's approaching GOAT status. And I hate saying that because it's like, the NFL's golden boy. He gets all the timely calls in the playoffs, especially, or, in the big moments, but especially in the playoffs. Fine. But have we seen a quarterback just be this dominant other than Tom Brady, in the last 25 years? I feel like it's, especially in the playoffs, bro, like Mahomes and Brady. I don't remember witnessing a better quarterback. Maybe Steve Young, 35 years ago. I was a baby when Steve Young was ripping, and honestly, I wasn't even born for some of his Super Bowls. But in any case, man, like Kansas City, wasn't great against Houston. Houston does have a good defense, but they were making the plays as necessary. You look at Travis Kelce, looked like he didn't give a shit all season. Somehow managed 97 catches, and then all of a sudden he's going for a C note and a tutter against Houston's defense. That's one of the best against tight ends all season. Mahomes versus Allen's going to be a classic, but Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes. Money, I'm probably just going to do the money line -126. I have a couple tickets with the Chiefs, whether to win the Super Bowl or to win the AFC. I think it's probably going to end up being something along the lines of a 6-point game. I see something maybe like 27-20 Kansas City. Josh Allen's going to put up a good effort, but he's going to end up making one big mistake that costs them versus Mahomes, who's going to make the one big play.
So you like the under here with that final score prediction?
I think it's a little bit too high. I think both of these games are a little bit too high. If there was a game that was going to go over, though, I would think it's this one instead of Philadelphia. I think both are going to go under, but if you said, okay, pick a game that's going to go over, I'd probably say here. I mean, you get the extra point, that 48.5, 48 key number, 47 key number. So I think this is going to end up being lower scoring.
Yeah, no, I honestly completely disagree. I am mad that I missed the 47.5 because, like you mentioned, key number 48 now, or it's through two key numbers of 47, 48. But that's why this was the third leg of my teaser, the over here, because I did like it at its normal price. So I had other people that I respect also mentioned to me that they like the under, Johnny. So I'm curious why. I guess I'm curious two things. One, like how strongly you feel about it going under, and two, like what's the main reason? Because if you just like we're saying like, yeah, guns ahead, I think it's going to go under. It just seems a little high, or do you have some things that are really pushing you toward the under? Because maybe I can convince you. I love the over.
In terms of confidence, like if you say how confident on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably say a 4.
Yeah, you're betting it, so
Yeah, I'm not betting it. I'm thinking it just because Josh Allen, I just don't think he's going to have enough weapons to consistently move the ball in the pass game to a point where he did a few years ago. I think they're going to be able to move the ball, but to the point where Buffalo is going to be scoring 30 points again, I don't see it. I feel like the Buffalo Bills scoring 20 to 23 is something that's a little bit more believable. They're relying so heavily on the run game, and Steve Spagnuolo is going to be prepared for that. Really against the Ravens, who Kansas City, you can say, has got a better, especially pass defense against the Ravens. Josh Allen, you look at what he did. He wasn't called upon, obviously, to do a lot of passing, but the attempts were low, the yards were low. They committed to the ground game more, and this is something we talked about. Like, well, no, Allen's going to be dropping back 40 times to be throwing the ball. But I'm like, you can't always do that. I think committing to the run right now at Buffalo, especially Josh Allen under center, James Cook, the way he's going, I think that's probably going to try and be their approach again. And Kansas City, I think Buffalo's defense, we've talked about enough times that we're not sold on them being an elite unit. I think they're solid at best. They've made some plays here or there, but I wouldn't say Buffalo's defense is something that I'd be afraid of, especially with 15 under center. It doesn't matter who he's got back there. He's going to score. But, I mean, he's got some guys, even with Travis Kelce at his ripe old age of 35. What is he, 34, 35?
No, so I get it, but this is how I see this, right? Like you literally have the best quarterback in football and the second best quarterback in football.
Mm-hmm.
These are two defenses that when you're talking about Buffalo, I know you weren't like really praising them, but I think they're even worse on defense than you're making them out to be. And in this last matchup, the Chiefs were missing like 2 or 3 of the weapons that they have coming back, like Hollywood Brown. I think they're missing another at least starter on offense. And as we know, Travis Kelce's back alive. Pacheco is back in the mix as well. This is an offense that, can, like we're talking about a Bills defense that has generated some of the most success based on committing no turnovers and generating a ton of turnovers on defense. You're not going to get those turnovers with Buffalo and with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And even with the Ravens last week, Lamar had those 2 deadly turnovers, but they still were able to go, close to that total, if not over at the number you got, because those are 2 of the best quarterbacks going after it. Now you have that same situation, and this Chiefs defense too, over the last couple of weeks, leading into the playoffs and in those last 2 games, they were not looking as good as the Chiefs defense as they were Like, for example, last year when they were one of the best defensive units, you could run the ball on them. You could throw the ball on them. They're allowing explosive plays at a high rate, and Josh Allen is not a quarterback that takes negative plays. He doesn't take sacks. We know he loves to run. He will run at will. These are both teams that are very creative and are also very capable of converting long third downs to extend drives and to get points on the board. And listen, I think we're in for a classic. I think we're in for a one-score game with both teams going at it and both quarterbacks having like their, really shining moments. But obviously, I'm always going to defer to the best quarterback. And like you said, the whole GOAT status thing, like, yeah, he's in that conversation and he will continue to be in that conversation when he most likely three-peats this year in Mahomes. But I think we're talking about, again, a completely different matchup from when these two teams played in the earlier season based on health. The defenses are both on a decline, and you have both quarterbacks who are the two best quarterbacks. And I find it hard for them to have no success, especially, again, in a nice, beautiful, it's supposed to be a beautiful night in Kansas City for this time of year. We're not supposed to be dealing with elements, including wind. And we're talking about, again, two guys that are absolute units, like the Bills. They put up 24 and like 12 straight. Like, they're unstoppable. They've done that against great defenses. If the Bills are putting up 24 and have the Chiefs winning, they got to put up at least 26. And that's getting us over this total, 27 too. And they're both capable of doing that. So I don't think we see like a track meet per se, like the Lions and Commies were last week. I think we see two great offenses doing great things. Maybe there will be a turnover here and there, but both these teams are capable of scoring despite turnovers. So I think over 48.5. It's past the number, but it's still like, if you're looking for the action against the 49, it's just bad gambling because you missed out on two good numbers, which is why I just sent it with in the teaser with the Chiefs and the Commies.
I mean, listen, I understand what you're saying, and I wouldn't die on this hill that the game is going to wander. It's just, honestly, it's a gut feel, just something that I'm looking at what they have, and I feel like it's going to go, especially with Buffalo, a little bit more, trying to turn out some clock and keep those 8-9 methodical play drives going. I know with Baltimore, they tried to go ground heavy, which is what they did. And that's the kind of thing I'm feeling. I feel like Kansas City, I don't think is going to be, like you said, a track meet against Buffalo's defense, because Buffalo still has some playmakers. I think Buffalo is going to be up to the task. But listen, I'm not dying on this hill. It's probably not even something that I would bet. But Kansas City is what I would bet. I'm thinking this teaser wise. So Commies 6.5, or I'm sorry, 12.5, and you're getting Buffalo at 7.5 as a 120 teaser. I think that's probably going to be a big play for me. I feel like Buffalo's going to keep this inside of a 7-point game.
Yeah, no, I everything that I've played so far, I've talked about. Commies money line, Commies plus the 6, and the 3-team 10-pointer. That's what I've locked in for this weekend.
All right, so you have Commies Chiefs. If you're in for the Commies Chiefs Super Bowl, Washington would then be a 4.5-point favorite against Kansas City. Hypothetically, obviously, we still have a few days until these games get played, but that's the hypothetical matchup right now. Is Washington is a 4.5-point underdog as the home team at a 49.5-point total. You think Kansas City wins, but if that was the case, would you take the Washington Commanders on the spread at 4.5?
Chiefs all day, every day. I'm giving, again, like a lot of my reasoning for Washington now is Jaden Daniels is going to slay another quarterback he's just better than. He ain't better than the GOAT of currently playing. He's not better than Josh Allen either. Though I think we're more alive in that game because of how bad Buffalo's defense would be. Though the spread is the same, I'd be more inclined to bet Washington against the Bills. Again, worse defense. Josh Allen's going to obviously get his on offense, and I think that they'll end up being. But I think that the variance we talked about the Lions game, like there are. I last week I didn't give it out as the best bet on the show because it wasn't. Though we both like the spread for Washington, but I said in the beginning of the show last week, which favorite has a chance to lose? I said the Detroit Lions. Just in a one-game sample, bad defense, and Washington can maybe get some timely plays, and the Bills have been, luck merchants. So if it's Commies Bills, I think that we are more alive to win in a one-game sample size and shock the world. If it's Commanders Chiefs, Mahomes is three-peating, and Missouri can celebrate once again.
Well, let's hope it's Eagles Chiefs. Really,
it's Chiefs to the moon.
I need the Eagles. Let's hope. Let's hope. I'd really be grateful for that. I might add myself in some more Kansas City AFC, well, not AFC, but Super Bowl stuff. Just kind of even it out a little bit. All right, prop. I got to be honest. I haven't really jumped into the prop market too much for this week, and I'm kind of like focused on what we have on our plate. But I've taken a look at some stuff, and I got to shout out. Sam Wagman. Sam Wagman, I've been following him for a long time. He put out a really good tidbit. Eric, I don't know if you saw it, but because everybody was hyping up this Saquon Barkley rushing total, 130 and a half, 125 and a half. Like, oh, it's historic. We've never seen it before. But his theory, and that's why, I felt compelled to share it with you, everybody. He's like, why would you take that? That's such a high total. And obviously he can get it, but that just seems too high. Like, that's almost a time where I would take the under. But instead of playing that, why wouldn't you just take Saquon's longest rush at over 23 and a half yards? The amount of carries he's probably going to have, it's hard to hit 126 yards without you getting a carry that's over 23 yards. Like, unless you hit like 520 yards, 520 to 22 yard runs exactly, and sprinkle in some like other 10 or 12s. What do you think about that? Taking Barkley over 23 and a half instead of say going on his rushing total.
Yeah, no, Saquon against this Commanders defense is certainly in a position to break a big one. I don't have the exact like long rush numbers in front of me from their previous matchups, but as we know, Saquon absolutely destroyed the Commies throughout the regular season on the ground. Like 29 for 150 the last time they played. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I want to check out the longest rush because you don't really get to it.
He had a 68-yarder in the last matchup. In the first matchup,
he's absolutely breaking one. So I think that's a good point of view. Shout out to Sam. Definitely always interact on X. So glad to give us some content. No, I think it's a worthwhile look. I think like what you said initially though, like, I don't care. It's like we made this point a bunch of times on podcasts. Like, odds matter. Like, I don't care if, like, for example, Aaron Judge to get 2 total bases is minus 180 and he hits 4 home runs. It's a bad bet. Saquon runs for $165 and you bet under and you bet over 130. Like, that's still a bad bet. Like, that is a ridiculously high line. And whether or not it wins, I don't think is irrelevant to whether or not it was a good bet. It's just borderline impossible to justify.
People win bad bets and lose good bets. It happens all the time. And there's some what's it called? Old school mentality where it's like, well, it won. It was a good bet. I mean, listen, you get lucky. You get lucky, you get unlucky in betting. You get the best of the number and you lose. You get the worst of the number and you win. Shit happens. But over time, if you have the good philosophies, you get the best of the number, you get the best of the price, you get the best of the odds. Over time, that usually works in your favor. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking that with Barkley, and obviously I haven't jumped too hard into the props here, and the touchdown markets are off the charts with, Saquon being minus 280. I do like Jaden Daniels at plus 210, worth a look. That's a little high for JD. I know he didn't quite make it against the Lions, but I mean, anytime you have a guy with his kind of mobility, and Nakobe Dean being out, and a team that likes to run as much as Washington does, a team that goes for it as much on fourth down as Washington does, he's live.
Yeah, so I haven't dove too deep. I have a couple of things that I've looked at, though, that I think are worthwhile. So now, listen, from a Eagles standpoint, right, if you think that A.J. Brown is finally, like, healthy for this game and you want to, bet on, again, the Washington's tendencies all year long to, like, play man defense like they did in that second matchup and in that first matchup and not do these tendency breaking things like they did last week, the A.J. Brown at plus 140 is a great look considering, he is the best athlete, but considering how Lattimore played last week for the first time, obviously still against a great team and with some zone coverage, which we might deploy, that could be a moot, but, a number one receiver of Brown's caliber, especially if he plays against Washington, is, definitely worth a look. But deeper down the board, I think Goddard at plus 350 is a great look. Like, yes, in the red zone, they're going to run it with Saquon. They're going to push with Jalen Hurts. But Goddard, he did well he did well against the Commanders in that first meeting, though he missed the second one, and he is a key piece of that offense. And for the Commanders side down the board, I think Zach Ertz at plus 280 is still a little bit disrespectful because he is number 2 in their red zone targets. Like, it's not a coincidence that he scored last week, and he's somewhat matchup proof in the sense where if they're going to force feed him the ball in the red zone anyway, like he's obviously not catching a 25-yard bomb at this point, old Zachy E, but yeah, he's going to run a 6-yard slant when there's 6 yards to go.
Did he score twice against them last time?
Yeah, I think yes, maybe that was the first game. He didn't score twice against them last time.
No, maybe not twice, but he scored. I know he scored the first time because he scored in garbage time, I think, didn't he?
Maybe in the first game he scored that touchdown. Yes, the garbage time touchdown. In the second game,
I'm sorry, it was twice against the Falcons.
Yeah, so you got that memory on the brain, but. Zach Ertz is there. And for terms of player props, real quick on some lines for, yardage and whatnot, I think De'Ami Brown, 43.5 is probably too high now. He's been killing it in the playoffs, but, that's like he's been lined at like 25 to 30. Like now he's 43.5. So it seems like a sell high opportunity there, though I wouldn't be playing that. And again, if you do believe that A.J. Brown is, healthy and that the Eagles can get something going, then looking at A.J. Brown 60.5 is worthwhile as well. But I'm not of that belief. I'm Team Kami, so I don't have any official props, but those are some things that are making sense to me in this one.
Last week I talked a lot about Travis Kelce with his receiving yards, his catches. That was easy. Smith. I don't have. You see, this is where this would be a perfect prop is to have the Staples "that was easy" button and just give it a nice little smack right there. Kelce went for a hundy. He went for a touchdown. He went for 7 catches, I think, and it's reflected here. 67.5 yards is his total. I know it was a quiet game for him last time they played the Bills, but this is playoff Kelce, man. This is where he saves it for. Are you going over that 67.5 this time?
Like honestly, because the books are gonna give us profit boosts. I'll probably have like a Kelce 60 plus somewhere in a parlay, though it's not on my radar to play straight right away. In terms of receiving, I think I have to do a little bit more research on here, but Dalton Kincaid is a tight end, but they do not necessarily line him up as a tight end at times. But KC has been a tight end funnel this season long. So if not, Kincaid, is playing, more of in the traditional style of that the Bills defense are going to have they've played and allowing tight ends to be a funnel, then I think 35.5 is way too low for Kincaid in terms of receiving yards. On that same note, Knox is 15.5, but Kincaid's definitely who's going to play traditional tight end at certain times, but Kincaid is going to play more. And he was hurt, a lot of this season. So he's kind of getting his legs back under him still, despite being injured earlier in the season. It's obviously never easy to come back from a serious injury in the National Football League. But I think Kincaid's worth a look. I think James Cook can have a day, like you mentioned. I think that Buffalo might have some, running aspect to it, though I don't think that would deter me from an over. But I think James Cook got 55.5 for a guy with his explosive run potential. The Chiefs defense allows a decent amount of explosive runs. And just the fact that, he is that best player in Buffalo's backfield in terms of pass catching and just agility. Like he is their RB1. I think that's a little too low for a guy who's going to be on the field as much as James Cook is.
That's what it was last week, and I was like 55.5 really, and then he hit that in the first drive. James Cook had a day. I'm looking at the touchdowns here and just kind of thinking out loud. Does Amari Cooper get in 6-1? I mean, he's been non-existent, but playoff Amari Cooper, I feel like, I don't know, like a guy with his talent, even though he's not the same receiver he used to be, that's a big price for Mr. Cooper, especially if this game does turn into a shootout. And, Khalil Shakir's getting more of the attention. I mean, you got Matt Collins at 6-1. A guy I'm also interested in is Ray Davis at 7-1. I think he punched in the first touchdown last week. And Buffalo does this weird thing with the backfield where like they'll take James Cook out at the weirdest time. And Ray Davis is a good runner. And this guy can sneak into the end zone. So at 7-1, something that I would watch as well. But, you know, kind of just talking out loud here.
No, I like the thought process. I'm looking at it too now at 7-1. I also, again, Knox more than I like the 15.5 receiving yards. 7-1 on Knox touchdown. He does run a good amount of routes. But in terms of Amari Cooper, this is the guy who's, you know, I agree with your thought process because I had the same thought process last week and threw him in a slip. I was like, bro, it's still Amari Cooper, right? Like, you know, it was like 4.5 to 1. Like, you know, it's worth it. And it did nothing for me. Doesn't mean I won't do it this week. But I see the thought process, and I've already been burned on it, so I'm not going back to the well. But your Ray Davis, I think you're onto something, and I think that Dawson Knox also in that 7-1 flyer range. I think both of those are fun 7-1 looks for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited for this weekend. You know, we have the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, NFL coming to a close starting Monday. We're going to have the week off. We're going to gear up for that Super Bowl stuff. You know, talking all the matchups. We got college baseball coming up. I can't say how excited I am to have college baseball coming back. But Eric, appreciate your insight as always so much. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Best of luck this weekend. Let's go Kansas City. Let's go Philadelphia. Pile those teasers in. Get those wins up. Let's build up a little bankroll for Super Bowl Sunday.
Left hand up. We're the Commanders. Let's go, baby.
Right hand up. Let's go, Jaden Daniels. See you guys later. Thank you so much.